What's going on, Laker fans? I know it has been a while since we've done this, but with all the rumors going on out there, man, I thought that we would get back out there, talk a little bit about it. It's me, Alex. You guys know who I am. You know that's Omar right there, and that's Phil right in the middle of us. Uh, the trade talk, man, is flying. So tonight, NBA draft starts in roughly an hour. Woj has already said that Cade Cunningham is going to be number one, but the Lakers have the number 22nd pick in the draft, but they may not even pick it for themselves, man. It might go to the Kings, it might go to the Wizards. But all day long, guys, all we heard was the Lakers and Kings were working closer to a deal. That's all day long, even like a half an hour ago. And then all of a sudden it switched to the Lakers and Wizards are working on a deal for Russell Westbrook. Um, so first, Omar, man, like, thanks for joining the show. Where are you at, man? Buddy Hield, Russell Westbrook. Where are you at this point?
Well, I think my first reaction was like, all right, we finally got I think the first thing was the first domino was Montrez opting in. That was the biggest question mark. That I mean, like Alex, you and I were like texting back and forth
Mm-hmm.
with all these rumors and everything kind of hinged on Montrez. As soon as we got the report that Trez is opting in, I'm like, okay, perfect. That Heald trade is definitely locked in. And then the Westbrook stuff came out. So initially, all these reports are coming. Woj is saying one thing, Shams is saying another thing, which leads me to believe that there's still so many more moves to happen. And I really think Heald is on his way to the Lakers. Westbrook is already, that's pretty much agreed in principle. It's a matter of, figuring out the contracts. And I really think Dennis is going to Washington, um, most likely with that first round pick. And then Kuz and Harrell are going to go to Sacramento to get Buddy to the Lakers. I just think, when the offseason hit, the Lakers had a few goals. They wanted to get playmaking. They wanted to reduce the workload on LeBron, and they're going to do that with Russell Westbrook. And they wanted to improve their shooting. And if they pull off this trade, the three-way or four-way, whatever it may be, to get Buddy Hield, we're going to have a elite sharp shooter on the team with Russell Westbrook, and then AD and LeBron coming back healthy from a long, uh, much deserved offseason.
Well, apparently Woj just said the Lakers and Wizards are nearing a deal, and there's optimism that a deal can be completed tonight. So, Phil, I know you had your mind ready for Buddy Hield, and it looks like we're getting Russell Westbrook at this point, and maybe Buddy Hield some point down the road. I mean, Omar, you mentioned it about I think the Bogdanovich stuff would happen with the Bucks. We don't want that to happen again with the Lakers because we know the league doesn't do us any favors. Whenever the league thinks the Lakers are tampering, they come after us. So, Phil, man, where are you at with Russ and all these rumors right now?
I the thing that's really anything else is been included in these rumors. The fact that the Lakers could pull off something like a 3 or 4 team trade and end up with both Russell Westbrook and Buddy Hield and continue to have, for example, Wes Matthews, Markieff Morris, THT, Alex Caruso, guys who already sort of start to fill out that roster around 3 stars. And when you look at it that way, I think Russ becomes a really exciting prospect because not only do you have the stability in some of the bench guys around him, but then you also have flexibility to build around his flaws as a third guy instead of as a second or a first option, which is going to be really important. And I've seen reports that there are apparently veterans who are lining up to come and ring chase with these guys in the event that the Lakers could swing a Westbrook deal. So I'm not really worried about filling out the roster. I think Westbrook brings a lot of exciting and needed qualities. So I'm happy about the deal overall.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not down on Russ like some other people are. There are fans that don't like him. He doesn't shoot the ball well. I mean, it just is what it is. He's not Steph Curry. He's the opposite of Steph Curry. But I don't think that that means you should just forget about all the positive things that the guy does. I mean, nobody casually averages a triple double, like not for 4 or 5 seasons, right? Like he does bring a lot of great stuff to the table. He's an excellent ball handler, so that takes some of that pressure off of LeBron. He still at 32 can get to the basket at will, and that's gonna help the Lakers out as well. They love to live in the paint. Um, and he rebounds the ball incredibly well. That's one of the things we loved about Lonzo. He was a good rebounding guard. Rondo was as well. And so to have another guy that can rebound from the guard position, I think is positive. And look, one of the issues we've seen with Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis has all NBA talent. He has like all time great talent, but you basically need a good guard to help unlock that talent, as many big men do. Magic and Kareem, Shaq and Kobe, so on and so forth, right? And so having a guy like Russ that can play with AD when LeBron is resting, or having Russ there that can help take LeBron off the ball when AD is resting, I think helps out a lot. Um, he, I don't know if I ever thought that this was really going to be a thing, but apparently it is. And Russ wants to come back to LA. I mean, you guys know he played for UCLA. He's a Kobe guy, a Kobe disciple. Kobe always spoke really highly of him. And as far as I'm concerned, this would not be happening if LeBron and Anthony Davis didn't want it to happen. So everybody can up and complain about the fit and he doesn't shoot and blah blah blah. Your two best players want it to happen, and so it's probably going to happen. And as it relates to Buddy Hield, I was really excited. I thought we'd be getting a knockdown shooter. He may be the third or fourth best shooter in the NBA, but there's still a chance that we can get him. And so I'm looking at some tweets from Yossi Gozen, and he basically said you can turn this into a three-way trade, and he details where the money would go. And obviously, we need to then bring in Dennis Schroeder, and we need to sign and trade him out somewhere. And so as I started thinking about this, if we walk away with Russell Westbrook and Buddy Hield, shit. Like, I mean, that's you can't. I mean, what more can you ask? Like, what more can you ask for, right?
Yeah, I mean that's
Well,
quite
it's
an off season of moves right there.
yeah, and packaging a deal for Buddy with a deal for Russ is almost sort of an instant tonic for Russ's greatest weakness. Like you're bringing on literally the worst volume 3-point shooter in the history of the NBA, but you're also getting a guy with a quick trigger who can both pull up, spot up, and like create off the dribble on his own, which is something that like KCP, he can run off of screens and shoot threes. He can pull up in transition. He isn't going to give you, a step back into a three that he's going to make at a reliable clip. Buddy Hield brings that skill set to the table, so he can use the space created by the gravity of the stars in more creative ways than KCP would be able to.
What do you think, Omar? I mean, let's say we don't get Buddy Hield, then what? I mean, I would imagine there are plenty of veteran shooters waiting to play with this Lakers team.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think there's plenty of options out there. There's Otto Porter, which I think is going to be tough to get, but there's Jeff Green. We can bring back Wesley Matthews, like Phil said, Markieff Morris as well. So there's definitely a bunch of players that are going to get lots of easy looks when you have Russell Westbrook, you have LeBron and AD applying so much pressure to the rim. There's bound to be so many easy and open looks from three. So I'm very excited. I mean, I think the biggest thing that the Westbrook trade and deal does is that we are able to, move a reasonable contract in Kuz and upgrade while getting a dynamic ball handling point guard in Russell Westbrook. But I think it's an excellent floor raising move, right? Because during the regular season, you go through the lumps, and LeBron and AD can definitely coast while Russell Westbrook can just like run the show. And he has like an excellent motor. Like it doesn't matter what game it is or against what team, he's gonna bring it every single night. And we've seen with AD, sometimes he's like there, sometimes he's not. And when he decides to turn it on, you know how all-time talent he is. I think Westbrook's gonna keep everyone honest, and that's gonna be something special to watch.
Yeah, I think so, man. I think look, Westbrook. I think Westbrook is a phenomenal talent. I think that there's no way in the world anyone can argue he's not better than Dennis Schroeder, right? Like, I mean, he is
Right,
better
right.
than him. I think they do some things differently. But I think as it relates to Dennis, I think that Dennis did get kind of a bum rap towards the end of the season. He did battle, potentially COVID this year, and he had to miss some time because of maybe having that. And so um, he clearly wasn't 100%. Like his body just wasn't right coming back in the playoffs. That doesn't excuse him having 0 points in a playoff game and all that kind of stuff. But the reality of it is, I think when you look around the NBA, as it stands right now, the Nets have James Harden and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Now, injuries obviously played a role in their season this year as well. But if they can get to the playoffs marginally healthy with those three guys, they're going to be a bear to get out of the playoffs. And you look at the Bucks, who just won the championship. I mean, Giannis is all world, right? But then you've got two all-star level guys in Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. And so I think the Lakers are saying, forget about Russ for a second. Is LeBron and Anthony Davis enough? And I do think that LeBron and Anthony Davis is enough on most nights. I think that if they were healthy, they might have still won the championship this year and beat the Bucks. But I do think the Lakers are looking at the finals and a potential finals matchup and saying, do we have like one more guy who can just bring it? And Dennis Schroeder's not that guy. Trez is not that guy. Kuz is not that guy. They are very good players, but they're role players. And so I think that the Lakers are trying to figure out a way to bring in another star. And I'm big on you just stack talent and let those guys figure it out. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook should be able to figure it out. And I would imagine if Russell Westbrook shows up in Los Angeles, AD is going to play way more five, right? Like there's just no way they're going to try to put Andre Drummond in the starting five with Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I definitely can't see that happening. We also saw reports earlier this offseason that AD and LeBron both want to play the 5 and 4 more. And we just saw how effective Giannis was at the 5, and other players like him, which is probably just AD, right? That how effective like AD can be going to the paint, and um, I think we need that one more shooter, and then things are gonna open up for us like big time. And it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see what Rob has in store for us. Hopefully, we get another pick too. I could see that happening. I thought I saw something on the timeline along the lines of getting another pick, possibly a second rounder.
I mean, and there's a potential that the Wizards will send us back the 15th. Now, if that happens, that's crazy. If they give us back the 15th and we flip the 22nd. I do want to point this out because Eric Pincus tweeted this 2 hours ago. He said the Lakers and Wizards have worked together previously under Pelinka, and the Wizards were the third team involved in that Lakers trade for Anthony Davis. So the Wizards may be willing to work with the Lakers in helping facilitate Buddy Hield. I don't know. I don't know. Phil, there's no way the Lakers let Dennis Schroeder walk for nothing, right? Like even if they get Russell Westbrook, you can't let Dennis walk for anything. I think we're losing you a little bit, Phil. And
Am I
to
back?
me, yep, you're back.
Okay. It's not likely that Dennis is going to get the kind of money that he's talking about outside of a sign and trade scenario. Just because no one, unless they're offloading salary, is going to have that kind of money to spend on him. So I think it is in his own interest to work out a sign and trade scenario and not walk just because that's how he gets paid.
You think there's any chance the Knicks could? I think they've got what, like 40 or 50 million in cap space. Could they throw 20 million at Dennis Schroeder?
They could, but they also like how much crap do the Knicks really want to take? Even as the Knicks, like if they throw a bag at Dennis Schroeder after, talking about really wanting to attract stars and make a big splash and make the team competitive with the Nets, like they're just going to get roasted.
Yeah.
And I think that they are cognizant of that and that they will avoid overpaying him on that basis alone.
It's interesting, man, because I do believe that like there's a lot more to this Russell Westbrook and Buddy Hield trade talks. Like I think there are pieces involved that the Lakers just can't talk about. And so I think there are a lot of moving parts. Where it all ends up, I don't know. But another wrinkle is Carmelo Anthony might end up being a Laker, and him and LeBron might finally get to play together, right? Would you welcome Melo? What do you think, Omar?
Yeah, I definitely would welcome Melo, depending on the type of role. If he's willing to come off the bench and give a spark, that offensive, game that he has from the post
Mm-hmm.
is still super lethal. He can like string up like 8 to 10 points in a row, and can get super hot. I know he's a bigger player too. He's still really good at getting rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
I know his defense is not there because he's older, but I mean, in terms of like a vet minimum, I think it's a really smart signing. I mean, he's super smart too when it's going to come to playing for the team. So I would love for him to join the team. I think it would be great.
Phil, where are you at on Melo, man?
I like Melo as a sort of break glass in case of guy.
Hmm.
I would be uncomfortable if he was given a vital role in the rotation where he's going to have to come through in his role come playoff time. I don't know that that's where his game is at this point in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But if to be a veteran presence or a bucket when you're out of options, if he's ready to take on that role, I think he would be great.
Phil, where are you at with Alex Caruso and Taylor Horton Tucker? You want him to come back, or do you think that we could get maybe a win now guy if we ship those guys out?
I value them both quite highly. I also value being able to get someone like a Russ Westbrook because Caruso is a top 5 defensive guard in the league.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why he's a role player is because he has a lot of holes in his offensive game. There are a couple of things that he does really well, but mostly he's kind of okay. But to me, if that's a guy that you can bring off the bench, you keep him unless there's a very good offer on the table. Now, just like if you ship these guys out with some other stuff, you're going to get Zach LaVine. That's a no-brainer. But if it's not for another all-star caliber guy, then I say these are the guys you need to win a championship around your all-star core.
Omar, what kind of big man are we looking to get back, man? I mean, Drummond, I don't know about Drummond, man. I think you can get maybe better value from someone like Dwight than Drummond. And then Mark, there's some talk that he might retire, but I think he sticks around. But where are we going in terms of big men?
Yeah, I think when you look at the way Russell Westbrook plays, you want a big that can roll with him because he's so athletic and fast and can get to the rim. So because of that, defenses are going to sag and help out the defender that's guarding Russell, which opens up so many lob opportunities. So like Dwight Howard would be perfect for that, coming off the bench. I would look at I was gonna say Damian Jones, but I think he's still with the Kings. I think he signed with them long for this upcoming season. But I haven't looked at the free agents for centers, but anyone that could roll with him or also space the floor, floor spacing big would be absolutely vital too. So if Gasol is willing to come off the bench or if he's starting, I'm not sure how the starting lineup works out. But if the reports are true that AD is willing to play the center, in the 5 spot more, then we already have a center, right? We have a center in AD, and then Gasol can play, bench minutes for as a second center, and then maybe we grab Markeith or Jeff Green, and we want to go small, you know what I mean, or something like that, and that also is super valuable, depending on matchups. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the Lakers, it would be really helpful if they added a real stretch 4, stretch 5 to the roster. Now, Gasol obviously can do that, and I thought he was great earlier in the year. But one of the things I see with this team, if you're bringing Russ in, they're probably going to run a bit more. When the Lakers won their championship 2 years ago, they were running, and half court offense. Look, it's never bad. You have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but I don't think it was as optimized as it could have been. But they were just beating teams, getting out on the break, and I think last season they got away from that because of a number of reasons. I think this year they want to get back to, like, let's get out and fly. Well, if you want to get out on a break, and you mentioned this earlier, Omar, there have been talks that AD and LeBron want to play more 4-5. So if they're going to play 4-5 and Russ is going to be at the 1, well, you can get off the court and fly. But then you're 2 and the 3. I'd love to see knockdown shooters in those positions. Like, I don't want to see them bring in Melo and he's the starting 3 on the team or anything like that. Like, they need to find someone else more serviceable. Now, I think there are options out there like JJ Redick, right? Like, he's going to be available. Maybe he's a option at the 2. Folks have mentioned to me Rudy Gay. He's a good guy. I think they have on the bench. But what happened to all the DeMar DeRozan rumors, Phil? Like 2 days ago, DeMar was coming back home from Compton guy, USC guy. Where's DeMar at, man?
It's beginning to look as though some of that talk in terms of a sign and trade may have been a bit of a pressure play on the Buddy Hield deal. Or maybe on the Westbrook deal behind the scenes, because a lot of those pieces that were being dangled for DeRozan this morning are pieces that have been mentioned in connection with this Westbrook deal. And we don't know what conversations were going on this morning with respect to that. Going back to the big talk, though, I do want to make a point because I think there's a really interesting point to be made about maximizing potential here. Mm-hmm. When you've got a guy like a Dame Lillard or a Steph Curry who's just a lights out shooter, what you want for that guard is a big who can roll to the basket, because then you're taking gravity far away from the player, just as the player is taking gravity to them. With a guy like Westbrook, you really want more of a pick and pop big than you want a role partner, mm-hmm. because they're not respecting Westbrook's jump shot. They're respecting his ability to get to the rim, and so you use gravity to pull the defense away from his point of attack, not toward the rim where it's going. So guys like Markieff Morris, Gasol, and even the way Anthony Davis was starting to pass a little bit more basket face mid-range, that fits in well with how Russ likes to play, because those guys can make those shots, and that pulls defender away from where we're at.
Yeah, I think finding the right big that can help bring out the best Russell Westbrook, right? I mean, Anthony Davis can stretch the floor, but he's not. I mean, that's not his natural role. He's not Kevin Durant, right? So, Phil, is there anybody you could think of that you would like to see the Lakers go at that would help maximize Russ?
Not that's affordable, be perfectly honest. I don't think the market is really there after those guys. Like, everyone would love to have, a floor spacing big that's on the cheap, but there aren't so many of those around.
Omar, what do you think the Lakers do with DeMar DeRozan? Like, so let's say this trade happens for Russ. Is there any reason to try and still bring in DeMar? Because now there's another guy that can't shoot threes. DeMar's mid-range game is sick. I think he's great in the playoffs, but if you bring in Russ, then there's no point in bringing in DeMar, right? Even as an off-the-bench kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you can utilize those resources in other places, right? So try to look for that pick and pop guy that Phil was just talking about. I think it's very important now, if the core is Russell Westbrook, AD, and LeBron, which it seems like it is. It's going to be very important how you construct the rest of the roster, because you want to fill in guys that can do the dirty work, shoot the ball well, play defense, play very specific roles that can help elevate, or I mean, AD, LeBron, and Russell are going to do so much that will help elevate the rest of the players to do those small roles. So I know you guys just talked about it, but I think it makes now Caruso and THT, those signings, very, very important because they play very, very specific roles that are going to complement Russell Westbrook and LeBron and AD. So I think DeMar doesn't make as much sense because I think, the biggest thing was that he would bring on some of that playmaking. And, Russell, like if you look at his numbers, like playmaking wise, he's like one of the best out there. I know he has some warts, but I mean, as long as you create a roster that's smart and sound with those three, you can make things work, right?
Yeah, I think you can. And I think if you read the tea leaves coming into tonight, the Lakers clearly valued bringing in a new point guard. It didn't matter what that point guard did well or not. It looked like they were kind of done with Dennis Schroeder, right? There were talks of Kyle Lowry. There were some CP3 whispers. Obviously, Westbrook talk. Spencer Dinwiddie talk, right? I mean, it seems like they were looking for anybody but Dennis. And so if Russ is coming in, so let me ask you this, like, Phil, on a scale from 1 to 10, if the Lakers bring in Russ and add decent shooters, where are you at with the deal?
I mean, the deal is always going to be judged by the result of next year. But based on where the league is and the fact that, since the Lakers won their title, several teams have raised the stakes. The Bucks went for Drew Holiday. The Nets went in for James Harden. The, balanced league of great duos that was heralding in the millennium a couple years ago has suddenly disappeared. Yeah, so I think the Lakers needed to make a move like this. Whether it was Westbrook or Lowry, whoever it ended up being, they needed to get another top shelf player just to keep up and take some of the load off of their guys who are already sort of injured coming off of last year. So I think this is the sort of move where if it comes up, you have to take it. And I think I was tweeting about this earlier. You create a scheme to maximize your talent. You don't search for talent to fit a scheme. And Westbrook is clearly the most talented player that was gettable for the Lakers. And so I feel like going for him is the right move.
I do too. I mean, I didn't think LeBron would put together a big three. Certainly, I didn't think it would happen with Westbrook. But it is fair to point out, and someone tweeted this earlier as well, that like Westbrook has never been the third option on the team. He's always been either option one or option two. And in this scenario, when he was in OKC, I know he bumped heads with KD. He kind of wanted to be the guy. At that point, he was still much better than James Harden. But on this Lakers team, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Like they're 1 and 2. And I feel like Russ has enough respect for both of them, and they respect him enough where he's not going to try and steal the spotlight and take. Look, all players take bad shots. Like I think every time Russ takes a bad shot, people are probably going to be like, "Look, see, we said this is what was going to happen." But players take bad shots all the time. Hell, Kobe Bryant leads the all-time NBA in bad shots, and he's one of the greatest players of all time. But do you think that there's a way to bring out what's good about Russ, him being like the third option and not having to try and put up 20, 25 a game, just assist, rebound, man, get us out in transition. Those nights when LeBron or Anthony Davis don't have it going, then you go ahead and go for 30. But is there a way for him to be the third option in this to work, Omar?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think when you I mean, the way teams win in the NBA, like if you look at the history, it's usually the teams that have the most talent, right?
Yep.
So now when you pair AD, LeBron, and Russell Westbrook, regardless of the issues, right? There's gonna be warts, like there's negatives with everything. When the Brooklyn Big Three happened, they said, "Oh, there's one ball. How are they gonna compete? Whatever." They're so good that they were able to figure it out, and I expect the same thing when you combine LeBron, AD, and Westbrook. Um, I think the biggest thing for me too, which we haven't even mentioned, is that LeBron playing off ball more this season, playing in the post, and I can kind of see some of that D Wade, LeBron, Miami Heat offense coming to fruition with the Lakers, because we did add Dave Fizdale, which he was part
Yep.
of the Miami Heat staff, and I'm not saying D Wade and Russell Westbrook are the same at all, but they are slashers, like in their identity, and they use their athleticism really well to get to the rim. So I can see some of that offense coming to fruition with the Lakers this season. And like you said, these three, they're going to figure out, right? And I think at the end of the day, the hierarchy. It's going to be LeBron, AD, and then Russell Westbrook. And you go through an 82 game season to figure it out, right? You're going to have close games, you're going to have blowouts and all that kind of stuff. And you fit the scheme like Phil was talking about, and they'll figure it out. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And people are gonna get their jokes off. That's gonna happen. That's what Twitter is.
That's Twitter.
That's
Yep.
what it's all about. But you can't tell me, Westbrook, when he comes to the Lakers, like every team he's gone to, he's always about winning, and giving it his all. And this is the first time he's probably on a team where they have a legitimate chance to contend for a championship. I know the OKC teams were amazing, but they were still young, and they were they're on up. So there's a lot of things to look at.
Well,
Yeah, and there's something to be said for motor. Just
Oh, yeah.
like Russell Westbrook has taken a lot of bad shots in his career, but the number of games that he has half-assed,
everything that people complain about Anthony Davis not having a motor, Westbrook is the opposite, right? Like the dude just goes
Yeah.
full steam ahead through brick walls, man. I love that about him. Shams did just say that Westbrook is fully prepared and expects to be a Laker. So clearly, this is going to happen. We just need to figure out which players are going where.
Yeah.
Phil, let me ask you this. Like, I'm gonna tweet this later, but like, serious question. No matter who else they add to this roster, who in the Western Conference can beat a team with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook? Kawhi's hurt, going to miss most of the season. Who's the guard for Denver? Now I can't think of his name. He got hurt.
Jamal Murray.
Jamal Murray. Right. I mean,
don't forget my Kentucky guys like that, man. Come on.
but like, who in the West seriously can beat a team with those three guys? I don't care who else is on the roster. Who can beat them if they're healthy?
Healthy Denver, I think, comes the closest, pending some magical move that Dallas might make to get another star down there with Luka, because I mean Dallas is going to be a wild card for years, because the moment they get someone who is a legitimate playoff threat next to him, it's just going to be hard to keep them from scoring. And I wouldn't put it out of the question for them to make a big move and maybe, make a threat. But to me, the biggest threat at this point, not to be disrespectful of Brent, which has always been just a basketball, but with those three guys, I just think the talent gap is a little bit too significant right now in the Western Conference.
That's where I'm leaning. I kind of feel like Omar, the only team that can really beat them is going to either be the Nets or the Bucks. I mean, and now we don't know what Philly's going to do. Now, Philly is asking a what seems to be a ridiculous price for Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
But he is under contract for like 4 more years, so I get it. I get why they're asking for pick swaps and all this extra stuff. But who in the Western Conference, Omar?
They're
do you
practically like Tom Sawyer whitewashing the fence.
Who can beat the Lakers, Omar, with these three guys?
From the West or just overall?
from the West?
I don't think right now, as the teams are currently constructed, I don't think there is a team, because I think you guys have to, you have to factor in, you have to beat these guys 4 times out of 7. It's not like the NCAA March Madness where you can kind of win a game, unexpectedly, because one team, like the Lakers couldn't shoot and you lose. I just don't. It's like, I had my reservations when we signed Rondo and we won a championship. And Westbrook is a significantly better Rondo. I mean, at this age and the way he is. So I can't think of a team. Maybe Denver is the closest, like you said, Phil, because of the Jokic and Murray and Gordon. They looked really good when Murray was healthy. But again, I just don't think they're going to have any answers for the rim pressure that LeBron and AD and Russell are going to put on them. And if so, I think if the Clippers were healthy, I think they would probably stand the best chance. But in they aren't, and I don't think Kawhi is coming back next season. So I don't think there is a team. Obviously, barring health.
I mean, I guess we shouldn't be surprised the Lakers are going for like a legit third star, right? Because Paul
Yeah,
George was supposed to originally, and I hate to bring his name up, but you guys remember, we thought he was going to be the guy with LeBron and then Anthony Davis. We thought
yeah,
Kawhi was going to end up being the guy, right? I know look, I flirt with the idea of Dame Lillard, but that's not going to happen. Steph, we flirt with the idea of Steph. That's probably never going to happen either. I will say though that Russ only has 1 year left on his deal. I think he might have a player option. I have to double check that unless one of you guys
Yeah.
know, but he does. Um, and but so the Lakers love stars, man. Dr. Jerry Buss loved stars. That's what the Lakers do. It doesn't matter about fit. They bring a star in to play with the stars they already have, and they expect everybody to figure it out. And more times than not, what team wins like the Lakers? I mean, they figure out a way to win, and I kind of feel like the Bucks will have a longer off season than the Lakers did after their championship, but I kind of feel like the Bucks are going to have some issues coming into this year also. It's still a short off season. I think that grind is going to be harder on them, and I think the Lakers have to maximize however long LeBron James can look like LeBron James. You have to go for it and not mess around. Um, I mean, so let me ask you, Phil, if they keep the 22nd pick, like, what do we do with it? Or should we just make sure that, or should we just trade it and get a win now guy?
I, especially if this trade ends up being for both Heald and Westbrook, I don't pick survives both of those transactions for the Lakers. And the way that it's so rare for rookies, even the best rookies, to be immediate contributors on good teams. I just don't really think that that's on the Lakers' radar right now. If they do pick someone, they will probably be stashed in the G League for a year or two in the way that THT has been for seasoning.
Omar, man, what do you think we do with it? Trade it? I mean, I'm of the idea that they have to move the pick, move it somewhere, get something valuable back for it, hopefully. But I don't believe you can't go for championships and develop players at the same time. That does not work.
yeah. I think they combine. They do something with the picks. Pick. We have only have one. I'm in agreement with you guys. I mean, especially like I looked into it. And like the different, like I heard that the draft was super deep. And the types of players that I was looking at primarily were like wing type players. So like, um, kind of like a Mikal Bridges type. And there's potential there, but like you guys said, I mean, it's just going to take like a few seasons for them to kind of get used to the system and playing in the NBA. And some of these guys, their bodies aren't even filled out yet, and it just doesn't make sense. I mean, you kind of have to use it to get a player back, like a veteran or whatnot. So hopefully we see something. In a few days once free agency starts, and we can kind of see what happens with Dennis Schroeder. Um, and maybe we do. I mean, I think we'll find out soon, right? We'll see if we make our 22nd pick. I don't know
Well, We got breaking news, guys.
Oh,
The
okay.
Wizards have agreed. This is from Shams. The Wizards have agreed to trade Russell Westbrook, the 2024 second round pick, a 2028 second round pick to the Lakers for Kuzma, KCP, Trez, and the number 22 tonight.
That's a good deal.
So there you go.
That's a
What?
good deal.
Why do you think it's a good deal? Deal, Phil. Deal. That's hard to say.
Because
Deal, Phil.
the, those 2 seconds are something we haven't heard in any of these reports before.
Yeah.
And it's like that combination of players was always going to be necessary in order to make the salaries work. In a trade like this, Harrell, like, I know that people will say, should you include Harrell in a trade? Is it worth trying to chase him and get rid of him? People were complaining about including him in the Hield deal, but he was never going to suit up again for us. He was either going to opt in and be traded or he was going to walk, because it was pretty clear that he was unhappy about his role with the Lakers last year and was looking to move on and get paid. So putting him in any deal isn't really a net loss for the team. And then getting those 2 second rounders in the future, I mean, it's just things that can be sweetened if they want to, make a trade in the middle of the year for that one more shooter or one more defensive piece that they need. These picks are the kinds of things that grease those wheels. So being able to get a couple of those out of a Westbrook trade for me it's a good solid move.
It's done, Omar. I'm sure you guys are looking at it, man. Like,
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
how do you feel about it? You think we're I mean, it sounds like there's probably more. I think those 2 seconds might get sent somewhere else ultimately. I agree with Phil. I think that people laugh at second rounders, but they're really, really valuable. Like, you can find great talent. The Lakers are really good at finding late round talent. But if the trade is done, Omar, like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good to get some of those picks. We didn't see that before, like Phil was just saying. I mean, really, the trade is Kyle Kuzma and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, because Montrezl Harrell opting in was never a guarantee, right? And we weren't really going to see him play in the playoffs. So, I mean, as well as the first round pick that we gave up, but having that flexibility with those other second round picks, that's definitely huge for us to use in other picks, because I think we only had because of the AD trade, the next 2027 was our next pick. But I'm excited. I'm excited for Westbrook to join the Lake Show. I think he's going to be super. Like, the fans, like, I mean, I live in Boston, but everyone who goes to Staples Center, I think they're going to love Westbrook in purple and gold, because he's just such a amazing talent to watch. I'm just still so curious to see what happens with Dennis and everything with that, because there's definitely going to be some moving parts to then fully assess, this offseason.
Yeah, look, I'm okay with Russ becoming a Laker. I like Russ. I've always liked Russ. People that really love guys that can shoot the three. I love Steph. I love everything Steph does, but I love everything Russ does as well. And I'll say this, man. It still remains to be seen what the Lakers do to fill out the roster. But that's a top heavy. That's a mean 3-headed monster. And it just seemed like once. I don't know if the Lakers were using the Hield stuff as a way to lean on DC to get a deal done for Russ. Like, I don't know where all this came from at the last minute, but clearly Rob was holding things close to the vest and he got this done. But I'm okay with Russ being a Laker. Like, I'm okay with that. I think he raises our floor. Whether or not he raises our ceiling, I think it has a whole lot to do with how the team is built out around these two guys. But look, fans were always upset about Kyle Kuzma not being consistent on offense, right? Like, so he's gone now. Trez, you couldn't play in the playoffs. Okay, he's gone now, right? Like, the 22nd pick was never going to be ready for us to win like now. They weren't getting – Tim Duncan wasn't coming out of this draft at number 22. It just wasn't going to happen. So I'm okay with where things stand right now, man. I think LeBron James is a smart guy. I think the comp to his Miami Heat days is a fair comp. Russ and Dwayne are different players, but they have a lot of similarities. And obviously, this isn't 2012. Things have changed in the NBA. But Anthony Davis sure is a hell of an upgrade over Chris Bosh, any way that you look at it, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the
100%.
right, and you look at the last three championships, Bucks, Lakers, and Raptors, not one was a knockdown shooting 3-point team. Not one. Phil, I feel like that just sounds crazy too. Phil, I feel like the Warriors have the Warriors have made people reevaluate how basketball is played, and honestly, only the Warriors could play basketball like that. Like Steve Nash's sons, they were lights out shooting also, and they couldn't win. So like our fans looking at basketball through like this Warriors glazed eyes, and there are clearly other ways to win.
Oh yeah, but here's the thing: you can win the play if Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. Yes, you can absolutely do that. You can sacrifice size. You can stretch the floor until it breaks and run guys off the gym. But you have to have those things to do that. If your shooters aren't really reliable and really good and always open, you can't stretch the floor like that. If you don't have a small guy who can defend 5 positions with the tenacity that Draymond Green can, you will get outbigged. And that's the sort of thing that has been happening to teams lately, is getting outbigged because they don't have versatility roles.
The Warriors, I think, were an outlier, plain and simple. I think that they were a complete outlier. And every single team that you see lean into shooting, like the Houston Rockets, famously Game 7 missed like 43 pointers. I mean, they should have went to the finals. And so there's other ways to win, man. I'm not going to get all up in arms about this trade being bad. Even if the Lakers don't add all the pieces that I would like for them to add, I just think that they're so top heavy. There's no one in the West, I think. I mean, I think your point, Phil, is fair about Denver. But maybe aside from Denver, like, for example, the Utah Jazz don't scare me at all. I mean,
No.
Right? Omar, what are you seeing out there, man, on the timeline?
Yeah, just look. People are still going back and forth on, what the move is and all this stuff. I mean, I think it's just folks need to just kind of calm down and be patient, because there's still the trade can't really be finalized until free agency opens up, and then until Kuzma's contract gets like locked in, I think, which is sometime in August. So there's obviously still time for the deal to be expanded and then do something. Who knows? Maybe they move Dennis in that second round, or they just got for something else. Where expanding it to the Kings or whatnot. I think there's still a lot to happen.
Yeah, I agree, man. There's a lot of moving parts here. And the draft is 6 minutes away, so I think we'll probably sign off and see what goes on with the draft. And if anything ridiculous happens during the draft, Lakers related, we'll jump on the spaces or something like that. But anything either one of you guys want to add before we close out, and say to Laker Nation, if you will.
Don't overthink it, guys. Your team just got a third All-Star. It's a good day.
I agree.
That's such a simple way to put it.
I couldn't have said it any better, man. 3 All-Stars. Yeah. It's going to be fun. Welcome home, Russ. Thank you guys for tuning in to Laker Central. And until next time, guys, we're out.